Howdy folks, hope you're all having a great weekend and welcome to the annual War Thunder video. Honestly, I'm not even sure what year it is anymore. All I know is that Chris Roberts just announced from his Oxygen tent that the 5th round of Kickstarter for the Star Citizen Alpha is going live, and the stretch goals are currently set at $4, $8 and $12 billion. That sounds like a lot, I know, but the dollar's not what it used to be. $4 billion is roughly the equivalent of one McDonald's Happy Meal. And yet, despite that, some guy from Florida just bought Twitter for $37. Anyway, what do we have for you today? Good question, glad you asked. This, in the MiG-15 BIS ISH, which is a sort of ground attack variant of the MiG-15, more on that in a moment, is Angry Razin. Now, this aircraft, everybody knows the MiG-15, an exceptionally good first-generation jet fighter aircraft produced by the Soviet Union in the 1950s. Famously saw combat against the F-86 Sabre in the Korean War. And the two aircraft were very closely matched. The MiG-15 was slightly better in some areas, the F-86 was slightly better in other areas. But the one big advantage that the F-86 had over the MiG-15 was a radar gun sight. The MiG-15 never had that. Instead, it used the old World War II predictor gun sights. On the upside, almost everybody who flew a MiG-15 was a World War II fighter combat veteran, although that's also true of most of the pilots that flew the F-86 Sabre. So they were pretty good at using that old World War II style gun sight, but the F-86 definitely had an advantage there. And Angry Razin's team were already up a kill without anybody firing a shot in anger. There's always somebody who crashes on takeoff. So that's good. Now, this particular variant of the MiG-15, as I mentioned earlier, is a sort of ground attack variant, and that's what those massive rail-type gate things on the wings are for. They're for mounting air-to-ground ordnance. Rockets, bombs, all of that sort of thing. Now, you can see that Angry Razin has not mounted rockets, bombs, and all of that sort of thing because he intends to dogfight in this aircraft, and that's a bit of a problem for a number of reasons. First, the addition of those, I don't even know what you actually call them, those great big dirty things on the wings does kind of mean that this version of the MiG-15 is not the best dogfighting version of the MiG-15. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still a good aircraft. But he's also been up-tiered. And that's going to be a significant problem for him because initially you might have looked at those things and thought, that's where he mounts his air-to-air missiles. But it's not. This thing doesn't have any air-to-air missiles. It doesn't have any air-to-air missile defences. It doesn't get to launch flares. And when you get up-tiered in this thing, you face enemies that do have air-to-air missiles. The only good thing is that they're first-generation air-to-air missiles, so they're not particularly good. And you can beat them if you can outturn them. And therein lies the problem. Because while, in comparison to other Soviet aircraft at this battle tier, the MiG-15 is better at turning, it's still not particularly good at turning. And with those monstrosities on the wings, this thing's even worse. And Angry Razin has been up-tiered in this battle, and he is going to be facing opponents that do have heat-seeking air-to-air missiles. So he really, really, really doesn't want to get any of those on his tail. First victim, potential victim, F-86 Sabre. This is the aircraft that this fighter chiefly fought in the Korean War. Nice first kill. As you can see, Angry Razin's MiG is armed with a particularly heavy armament, a pair of 23mm and one single 37mm cannon. Now this is a good thing and it's a bad thing. A heavy armament like that meant that the MiG-15 was particularly effective at taking down bombers. But you hit a fighter with shells of that caliber and it's going to break apart very, very quickly. The downside is an extremely limited ammunition count. Actually, there are two downsides. First, the ammo count. The 37mm cannon mounted on the chin only carries 40 rounds of ammunition, and the two 23mm cannon only carried 80 rounds of ammunition each. So you're going to be seeing Angry Razin making a lot of short, controlled bursts with these guns, because he just doesn't have the ammo count to be able to spray and pray in the way that the pilot of an F-86 Sabre can, because the Sabre was not armed with cannon, it was armed with 50 caliber machine guns, and 50 caliber machine guns will make a real mess of an enemy fighter aircraft as well, and they carried enough ammunition that you could afford to spray and pray a little. The other problem with having a 37mm and a pair of 23mm cannon, goes for the burst, doesn't quite get him, is the different ballistic properties of the shells that you fire. Fire all three guns at the same time, maybe the 23mm shells will be on target, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the 37mm shells will be on target as well. And there was another problem associated with... oh, somebody's firing missiles. Yep. Another problem associated with having all of these big guns mounted right underneath the engine air intake was that when the guns were fired, if you fired for an extended burst, the exhaust gases could get sucked right... oh, lovely kill. Very nice indeed. Yeah, the exhaust gases could potentially get sucked right into the engine compressor, causing your engine to stall. Although that was admittedly a minor problem. Oh, here come the missiles. Since a disciplined pilot would not fire extended bursts in order to conserve his ammunition. Oh, he's diving on the F9 Panther. And, well, he's missed, but it looks like he's forced him into the ground. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't count as a kill, but hey, a manoeuvre kill is still a kill. Oh, the Seahawk down there is in all kinds of trouble. He's got an F4 Fury and an F-86 on his ass. Wait, no, the F-86 is coming right after Angry Razin, or he's trying to. Angry Razin's looped around on him. Gonna be a difficult shot. Yeah. Again, short, controlled bursts. And now they're both on. Although he does have the advantage against the Sabre again. Some lovely manoeuvring there. Sabre's trying to lose him in the ground clutter. Oh, and is very, very lucky to escape. He's picked up a lot of speed in the dive. But the manoeuvres that he's pulling means that he's likely to lose that speed very, very quickly. The MiG-15 also had pretty bad roll performance. He's managed to get back. It's not on the tail of the F-86, but he's going to go for another high-angle deflection shot, and misses again. Very conservative with the ammunition, though. He does not have a lot to use. I'm not entirely sure what this manoeuvre's called. A high yo-yo? Didn't quite work, though. Oh, yeah. And he's got the Fury on his tail. Does the Fury have missiles? I don't know. I suspect that if he did have them, he would have fired them at him by now, because now there's three of them on. Alright, this is going to be fun. Remember, the MiG-15, not an exceptional dogfighter. Although it does have better turn characteristics than most other Soviet aircraft at this battle tier, it's still not really what this thing's for. Always drop the flaps, try to give himself a bit more lift and a tighter turn, which will work, but you really have to be careful about your speed. Yeah, I was expecting that to happen. He just ripped his own flaps off. Well, that's going to affect his turn performance, and he still has 3 enemy aircraft on him. Goes for the head-on, manages to avoid most of the return fire. Takes some right-wing damage in the second head-on, but it's nothing critical, although that is going to put... well, it's going to weaken the airframe, which is going to be problematic. On the bright side, he definitely came off better than the Sabre in that head-on engagement. He's now 1 against 2. A Panther and the F4 Fury. And he's managed to loop around on the tail of the Panther. Oh, and he's got him too! Okay, he must be almost out of ammunition now. And he has suffered some damage. The self-inflicted damage to his flaps and some airframe damage to the right wing. So... oh, wow, I've just realised. In all of the excitement, I had completely forgotten to notice that there are now only 4 aircraft left alive in the entire battle. Angry Razin here, of course, in the MiG-15. The F4 Fury, who is the sole survivor of the 3-on-1... well, he's not the sole survivor. He's the sole survivor on the enemy team of the 3-on-1 engagement that Angry Razin just fought. And you might think, well, it's now 3-on-1 against the Fury, and technically you're absolutely correct, but 2 of the 3 are Canberra bombers. And the Canberra was a great bomber. I believe in American service it was called the B-57. But it's a bomber. And it doesn't have any air-to-air ordnance. It doesn't even have any air-to-air defences. The Canberra's defence, which worked at the time it was introduced, was its speed. There wasn't a fighter aircraft in the world that could catch it. That, however, did not last for long. Such is the way of things. And then, of course, missiles became a thing. And doesn't matter how fast your jet is, the missile's always going to be faster. But the Canberras aren't going to be any help at all because they're bombers. They don't have any air-to-air ordnance. So while technically this is now a 3-on-1 battle, effectively it's still basically a 1-on-1. Angry Razin in the MiG-15 versus the F-4 Fury, who has given up the chase and is probably heading back to rearm, repair and refuel, which is exactly what Angry Razin is doing. Remember, he's lost one of his flaps, so that's going to make landing this thing interesting. Approaching the airfield, weaving from side to side to try to bleed off some speed. He also has air brakes, by the way, which is obviously useful. Needs to be careful, though, because you don't want to slow down so much that you end up stalling out. You think, oh, that's all right, I'll just drop my flaps for some extra... Oh, yeah. Oh, is he going to get the landing gear down in time? He is. He is, but only just. And then fires off his remaining ammunition with the recoil also working to slow his aircraft down, so hopefully, and with the air brakes out, he's not going to run out of landing strip. So, while Angry Razin is landing, repairing, refueling and rearming, the two Canberra bombers are off doing Canberra bomber things. Hopefully, the F-4 Fury is going to take the bait and go after the Canberras, making himself an easier kill for Angry Razin. Hopefully. We'll see. So, while he's getting back into the fight, let's have a quick talk about his opponent. The FJ-4B Fury. Looks very, very similar to the F-86 Sabre. Is not an F-86 Sabre. The F-4J is a fighter bomber. So, surely that would mean that Angry Razin, since he's in the MiG-15, would have an advantage against an FJ-4B. Well, a normal MiG-15 probably would, but this isn't a normal MiG-15. This is the MiG-15 bis ISH. It is also a fighter bomber. The two aircraft are going to be pretty evenly matched, except the Fury does have one massive advantage over Angry Razin. It has air-to-air missiles. It can carry 4 of them. The MiG-15 definitely does not have air-to-air missiles, at least this variant. And even worse, as a first-generation Soviet fighter, the MiG-15 doesn't even have flares. His only defense against a Sidewinder is to try to turn inside it. And as we've already established, the MiG-15 was never a particularly good turn fighter in the first place, and this variant even less so. They are still just very, very early variants of the Sidewinder air-to-air heat-seeking missile. They don't have particularly good thrust. They have pretty bad turning performance. You generally have to be behind the enemy, right in their 6, with them not pulling terribly aggressive manoeuvres in order to guarantee an air-to-air kill with one of these things. Oh, and be facing away from the sun. Yes, really. Yeah, that was a thing. So, while the Canberras are off doing Canberra things, Angry Razin here is looking for a date with destiny. Where, oh where did that F-4 Fury go? I'll technically give it its correct name, the FJ-4B Fury. Carrier-based fighter bomber attack aircraft. Oh, yoo-hoo! Come and feast on the vulnerable bombers. It doesn't look like he's going for it. This guy might be smarter than we are giving him credit for. Because if he kills Angry Razin, he can feast on the bombers at his leisure. Where the hell is he? Switch to his perspective. There you go. It's a very nice looking aircraft, isn't it? And yes, he does have air-to-air missiles. 4 of them. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Back to Angry Razin. It's the benefit of watching a War Thunder replay. You get access to all kinds of views that you wouldn't obviously have during the course of the battle. So if ever I'm in this situation thinking, where the hell is he, what's he up to, I can just switch to the perspective of the enemy player and, oh yeah, there he is. I mean, no, those are the Canberras, but you get the idea. The Canberras also haven't spotted anything. There's nothing visible on the map. But wait a minute, is that tiny speck right there? Wow, good eyes. Yep, here he comes. And unfortunately, he's not going for the bait and going after the bombers, because he knows all he has to do is kill Angry Razin, and then he can feast on the bombers at his leisure. So, it's a fight you want then, is it? Fair enough. Going for the merge, and of course the Sidewinders will be useless in the merge since they do require a rear aspect target lock, but well, he has guns as well. Oh, and he's braking low. That's interesting. Honestly, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. Different aircraft have different flight characteristics at different altitudes, and I don't really know enough to... Oof, that was close. To be able to say whether or not taking this down to the ground would be in the advantage of the Fury or the MiG-15. But I do seem to recall that the MiG-15 was better at altitude, so maybe that F4... Oh, here comes the first Sidewinder. And turn. Yep, we're good, we're good. Like I said, these things, early Sidewinders, they didn't track very well. But he's still not in a good position. Here comes the second Sidewinder, and... Oh, shit, that one was close. You don't want to have Sidewinders being launched from behind you. Here comes the third. Oh, if anything, that was even closer. He's still got one left. You've got to get him off your tail. And yeah, not a fantastic dogfighter. That is going to be difficult to do. But then again, you know, the F4 Fury wasn't a fantastic dogfighter either. It was also a fighter bomber. The two aircraft. Oh, here comes. And yeah, that one missed by a country bomb. Right, so we're down to guns. But in order to put the guns to use, he has to get this guy in front of him and off his arse. And that is proving, given the nature of the aircraft that he's flying, to be remarkably difficult to do. He's killing the throttle and dropping the flaps again. He's below 400 kilometers per hour. He should be able to keep the flaps, but he doesn't really want to drop below 350 kilometers per hour because then he's going to be slow. Oh, and yeah, it's like watching two old people fuck. We're in a yo-yo. Both of them trying to shed enough speed to force the other one to... Yeah, he correctly judged that he was about to pass in front of the Fury. Went low instead to stay out of his gun sights. But now he's got the Fury back on his ass. Luckily, the Fury has expended all of his Sidewinders, so this is not a good position to be in, but it's not necessarily fatal. He does seem to have a speed advantage at the moment. Not quite sure he's got enough speed to be able to pull a turn now and get the Fury in front of him for another head-on merge. But maybe he can force the Fury into doing something stupid. You can't count on that, though. So far, this Fury pilot has shown that he does know what he's doing. Angry Razin dragging him back up to altitude, turning really slowly for the dive. Fury sees it coming, he's lost him. He's lost sight of him in the clouds. Predicting where he's going to go. Fingers crossed. Yes, lovely prediction. Slots in on the Fury's tail, couple of bursts, and misses. Well, that was unfortunate. Overshot the Fury as well, of course, but the Fury's own evasive manoeuvres mean that, well, nobody really ended up with the advantage there. And they're back into a turning fight, something that the MiG-15 is not particularly good at. He does have the altitude, though. The longer he stays in a turning fight with this guy, the more... Oh, he's got him! He needed to end this turning fight quick. Is that going to be enough? I mean, that looks like a lot of damage. I can't honestly see the Fury coming back from that. He's activated the wingtip smoke. He feels confident. Has he done it? He has. Angry Razin in the MiG-15 BIS ISH. The little fighter bomber that definitely could. Hope you've enjoyed today's video, folks. Hope you're all having a great weekend. And as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.